My parents used to make excuses and allow my younger brother to take some of my things without asking permission, and when I tried to talk about it, they used to justify his behavior, which sometimes resulted in arguments. Fortunately, my aunt eventually intervened and helped resolve this situation by setting boundaries. When we were children, it was difficult to have something just for myself. As my brother grew older, he began to want money to buy things, just like I did. We received an equal allowance, which was fair, although I had to do chores to earn it, while he had no such responsibility. But that is already in the past, as now my brother needs to fulfill his obligations. My brother always wanted to have more money, regardless of whether he spent it or saved it. Sometimes he saved up, which was surprising since he often seemed like the kind of person who would spend it all at once. Both my brother and I received around 25 reais a month as pocket money, which I really appreciated. However, I used to save most of my money while my brother always wanted more. One day, when I was a teenager, I came home and realized that my room had been ransacked, and the only thing missing was my money, which I had hidden to prevent my brother from getting it. I thought I hid it well, but he found it somehow. My mother was home at the time, but she acted like she hadn't noticed, which I thought was strange since my brother was making noise while searching my room. During a later conversation, I mentioned this and my mother just cried and apologized, claiming that my brother was special and couldn't be compared to me. However, other family members chimed in and asked her to admit that my room was in a visible location, which she did. I asked for my money back, and although my mother resisted at first, I ended up getting it back because I insisted. They looked disappointed, like I had done something wrong even though my brother stole from me. Unfortunately, a few months later, the same situation repeated itself. My brother broke into my room again and took the money I had hidden. My parents didn't want to interfere and said they couldn't bear to see my brother so disappointed about losing his money. At one point, I felt like I was on the verge of insanity. I carefully made sure to remind my parents that the money my brother had taken wasn't theirs, and it was really frustrating to see them just watching all this without taking action. After expressing this, my father raised his voice and sent me to my room. The next day, I cycled to my aunt's house and vented to her, sharing all the details. She promptly returned with me and confronted my parents, asking if they really allowed my brother to take my money without doing anything about it. My mother started mentioning my brother's special needs, saying that she didn't want to make him cry again, and my father supported that statement. My aunt gave them both a serious look and reminded them that they have 2 children, highlighting the importance of my feelings and how wrong what they were doing was. She openly asked me how much money my brother had taken. I mentioned the amount he had taken, which at the time was all I had saved for a while. My aunt looked expectantly at my parents. They tried to make some excuses, but my aunt was not willing to accept it and confronted them. Finally, my parents went to my brother's room, and shortly after, he started screaming loudly. They came back with all the money my brother had taken and practically threw it at me, accusing me of making my brother cry. My aunt scolded them for acting this way when I had done nothing wrong. Begrudgingly, my parents gave me all my money back and offered a rather forced apology. My aunt warned me that she would be deeply disappointed if the situation repeated itself, and she offered a safe place to store my money in a safe at her house. I accepted the offer and started saving my savings there. My brother tried to search my room twice more for money, but I kept every penny safe at my aunt's house. When my parents asked me where I hid the money, I refused to say, surprised that they were so interested. My father was instantly defensive, but my mother calmed him down, and they didn't pursue it. As my brother didn't find the money in my room, he started looking for it in other places, causing damage throughout the house. To my surprise, my parents started blaming me for the whole situation. When I asked how this could be my fault for not allowing my brother to steal from me, they repeated the same justification that my brother had special needs. The last straw came when my brother broke into my parents' room and took a small security box where they kept some money. He locked himself in his room and started trying to open the box. At this moment, the situation reached its limit. At that moment, my brother couldn't find the keys to the safe, while my parents tried to open the door, ending up breaking it down. The room was in complete chaos, and the safe remained closed. My brother simply sat on the floor, hugging the safe and crying for the money inside. My father became overcome with anger, his face turned red, and, to my surprise, he began to reprimand my brother, imposing a punishment on him. It was a rare scene at the time. My parents also forced him to help clean up after the episode. From that day on, my brother never broke into my room or my parents' room looking for money, although he continued to investigate any clue as to where my savings might be. I started acting like I was deliberately leaving clues, going into certain places while he watched. He tore through the backyard shed, dug holes in the garden, and even searched the attic. My parents finally reached their limit with the situation in the attic and punished my brother again. Eventually, he discovered that I kept my money at my aunt's house. My parents didn't discuss the reason behind this, but someone, either my brother or one of them, ended up revealing the information to him. On the next visit to my aunt's house, my brother tried to find the money, but my aunt scolded him and he ended up sitting on the floor and crying. This happened a few times, and my aunt made it clear that she would take legal action if there was any damage. She even kept a digital camera handy to record any incidents if necessary. My parents severely scolded my brother to stop looking for my money. It was crucial that he understand that it wasn't his and that he shouldn't try to get it. However, this only resulted in more screaming and tears as he wanted him like a 3-year-old. Over time, my brother decided that he no longer wanted to go to my aunt's house. As a result, our parents visited us less, while my aunt visited us more often. Anyway, I managed to keep my money away from my brother until I moved away, and he never tried to steal it again. It was a terrible situation to face, especially when it comes to a sibling with special needs. Our parents should have acted more responsibly from the beginning instead of using their needs as an excuse for their behavior. After the first 2 times, it was obvious that they needed to step in and be more present parents, but unfortunately, they chose to ignore the situation and blame it on me. However, it wasn't my fault. I was just trying to protect my savings. It was only when the situation directly affected my parents, when my brother tried to open their safe, that they finally reacted and no longer tolerated this situation. They needed to try their own medicine to understand the severity of the problem. In the end, it was a relief that I was able to save my money and get out of that house, which, I'm sure, was a challenge to face. Not having to hide my money at my aunt's house anymore is a relief. My ex-partner is blaming me for everything, even though throughout our relationship she was overly controlling, and honestly, I'm a little lost as to what to do. We recently had an argument, which at first didn't seem serious, but ended up getting out of hand. The night before the argument, I was playing Xbox with my brother and decided to have a few beers, just to relax. I didn't feel the need to mention this to her since I was at home and had no intention of getting drunk or going out. Plus, she lives in another state, and we had already said goodbye for the night. However, she woke up in the middle of the night because her dog disturbed her, and we started texting. I mentioned that I was playing Xbox with my brother and having a few beers. That's when she questioned me for not saying she was drinking. I explained that it was casual, that we were just playing video games, and that she had only had 3 beers in about 3 hours. She responded by saying it was a lot of drinking and asked why I hadn't informed her. I replied that I hadn't thought to tell her since she was relaxing at home. If I was going out or actually drinking a lot, it would be a different story. It hurt me and made me feel attacked and interrogated for no reason. The next morning I brought it up and said I didn't like the way she had acted the night before. I was just enjoying a few drinks with my brother, and I didn't understand why she needed to question that. She responded with a facepalm emoji, and the situation deteriorated from there. I got sarcastic when she suggested I was starting a fight for no reason, and she got mad at me, thinking I was being immature. To be honest, I think I overreacted and went too far, but I was also tired of this need for control. Throughout the relationship, there were many times when she expected me to drop everything to serve her and inform her about every little detail, which consumed my free time. Still, I don't believe she had the right to question me for having 3 beers while she was sleeping in another state. Anyway, we both decided to put the phone away and get on with our day. We continued exchanging messages normally, and everything seemed to be fine. Maybe it was just a small misunderstanding. However, the next day, I decided to be a mature person and apologized for going overboard in the argument. I told her I was sorry about what happened. However, it appears that apologizing was not the right thing to do, as she responded that she needed time to think and would give me space. She told me to let her know when I wanted to talk. Finally, after 5 days of silence, she contacted me today and unfortunately, guess what? She broke up with me. She blames it all on me, claiming that I was hiding things from her, that I'm rude, and that I need help. It's as if something incomprehensible is affecting her. She says everything I've done has pushed her over the edge, especially mentioning my history of issues with ADHD and anxiety. However, I have already undergone therapy to deal with these issues and have improved significantly. In the past, I used to be an explosive person, and this has hurt her in the past. However, these incidents occurred a long time ago, and she is using this as her main argument. It seems like she is using these old incidents against me, even when she did her best to improve. Now, any mistake she makes is interpreted as a big mistake by her, and she ends everything suddenly. She claims that my current behavior is due to the fact that I am not currently in therapy. The truth is, I just graduated college and don't have the financial resources to continue therapy. I have explained numerous times that I am working to get a job and health insurance to resume treatment. It doesn't make sense to blame myself for something that is beyond my control, especially when she is controlling my ability to get therapy. In my point of view, I should fully support the partner's side in this situation. The way she is reacting to something so insignificant is exaggerated and immature. It seems like she was just waiting for an excuse to end the relationship, so she could dump all her old, resolved issues on me. It's disrespectful behavior and doesn't make her a good partner. In my opinion, he deserves someone who will treat him with respect and value the efforts he has made to improve. Changing the subject, my mother-in-law is quite authoritarian and insists on feeding me meat, and I'm having a hard time dealing with this. I've been with my husband for 6 years, and married for 3. We are expecting our son to arrive in just a few weeks. I met your mother early in our relationship, and we initially got along really well as we had common interests. I have been a strict vegetarian since I was around 10 years old, by choice. When I met my in-laws, there were small uncomfortable situations, like asking if I was sure of my choice in what I ordered to eat. She would also insist on sharing her meal with me or dangle pieces of meat in front of me and say nasty things. At first I thought they were trying to be nice, even if it was a little clumsy. However, after some time, this became more frequent. After my husband and I got engaged and later married, we started spending more time at his parents' house since they lived just a few streets away. I was looking forward to this as I never had a traditional family and always wanted to be a part of it. Our dinners used to be a frequent event, always featuring meat-based dishes, despite my mother-in-law knowing I'm vegetarian. I used to be content with just eating the sides and leaving the meat aside. However, there came a time when she started frying things in goose fat and adding bacon to vegetables, claiming it enhanced the flavor. My husband always intervened, saying it was cruel to leave me without a suitable option to eat. She always apologized, stating that she didn't know I didn't eat meat. I started to think that maybe she was uninformed or simply didn't understand vegetarian eating. I tried suggesting bringing my own dish to family dinners, but she insisted that was too complicated and that she wanted to please us. I came to think that she might be a little insensitive or not very perceptive, so from that point on I refused to eat anything she prepared. Whenever we got together with her parents, we chose to go to restaurants or invite them to our house. I remained cordial with her, even when I was frustrated with the situation, and she never seemed willing to discuss it. However, when pregnancy entered the picture, I began to rethink my relationship with her. She was constantly engaged, which was initially comforting. I don't have my mother around, so the idea of becoming a mother was bittersweet, as I had no one to turn to for advice or support. So, becoming closer to my mother-in-law seemed like an opportunity to bridge that gap. For the first 4 months, I suffered from morning sickness, and she was amazing taking care of the house and making sure I was okay. Although I couldn't tolerate many foods, she made sure to bring toast, fruit and tea, for which she was very grateful, as on my worst days she could barely get out of bed. As my nausea subsided, the problem reared its head again. She spent days at a time here, always wanting to help and preparing for what feels like an 800-week pregnancy. This is making me uncomfortable, and I'm feeling the need to have my own space. She is usually very close to me, and I know she is excited about the arrival of her first grandchild. However, she asks me about 100 times a day how the baby is and when she can meet him. Some of these questions seem a little invasive, like when she checks to see if the baby is moving or kicking and puts her hands on my belly, constantly rubbing and kissing it. In a moment of bad mood, I even pulled her hand away, which made her cry, and I felt guilty about it. During this entire period, I only got angry with her twice. The first time was when she commented on the size of my belly, not in a nasty way, but in the way people tend to do to pregnant women. Whenever she saw me, she would make jokes like, "I bet nothing fits you anymore," or "I swear you get a little bigger every time I look at you." This felt scary and invasive, especially since I've always had issues with my body image. Now that I'm about to give birth, these comments have become even more frequent and uncomfortable. A few days ago, my mother-in-law made a comment that made me explode. She said something like, "You look like you were ready to have that baby yesterday. How do you still have room for it? You're huge." After this observation, I lost my patience and responded harshly, something like, "I know I'm pregnant and I'm aware of it. Please leave me alone." I felt terrible afterwards because I hurt her and she didn't talk to me for a few days because of it. The second time I lost my cool was when the meat issue resurfaced, which may seem like a minor thing, but it was the final straw for me. While she was staying with us, she started cooking for my husband and me, and, to my surprise, she always prepared meat dishes. I tried to be understanding and told her that one of us would make the food, but she insisted that it wasn't fair for me to be in the kitchen, like I didn't cook for myself most days when she wasn't here. My husband, who has been an incredible support throughout this time, finally talked to her and explained that she couldn't do this anymore. She apologized and promised that she would not prepare any more meat when she insisted on cooking. I thought that if she didn't listen to me, at least she would listen to her own son. However, one day my husband was out of the house during the morning and afternoon, and my mother-in-law offered to prepare lunch for me. She made meatballs that looked vegetarian and were delicious. However, right after eating them, I started to feel terribly nauseous and vomited. It was strange, since I hadn't felt morning nausea or any kind of sickness for months. When my husband returned home, I reported my concern that his mother might have done something to the meatballs, and I even thought I was going crazy, imagining that she might be trying to poison me or get me to eat meat again. My husband confronted his mother, and she eventually admitted that the meatballs were not vegetarian, but contained pork, which I haven't eaten in almost 20 years. My body reacted instantly and rejected the meat. We decided to ask her to leave the house, and since then she hasn't stopped trying to get closer to us, begging for forgiveness. I do not know what to do. She has always been very kind to me since we met, and my husband has a close relationship with her. I don't want to be responsible for severing the bond between mother and child or preventing her from meeting her first grandchild because of something that may seem trivial. However, I have legitimate fears. My son could have dietary restrictions and allergies, and I'm worried that she might ignore them and offer something that would be harmful to him. I feel confused and unsure about how to proceed. This situation is more serious than many imagine. For someone who is strictly vegetarian or vegan, eating any type of meat can cause serious health problems as their bodies are not used to it after years of abstinence. It's a frustrating and disrespectful situation in which she seems to ignore my limits and my diet. I am in disbelief at her lack of understanding. In my opinion, I consider it essential to establish strict limits and no longer allow this lady to return to her home. It is clear that she is not understanding or is deeply uninformed about her dietary restrictions. She is blatantly disregarding these restrictions and cooking whatever she wants in an attempt to get him to eat meat, which from my perspective is more akin to attempted food poisoning than anything else. Therefore, I believe that kicking her out and saying an emphatic no to her presence in my home will send a very clear message. When we set boundaries and someone doesn't respect them, and then gets upset when we're firm, that's called imposing consequences. She needs to face the consequences of her decisions, as she is fully aware that you cannot consume meat, but is choosing to ignore it. Therefore, you need to take her out of the house and firmly tell her that she is no longer authorized to enter, otherwise this behavior will persist and she will not understand the message. Thank you for your attention. If you like this content, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to continue following stories like this. Additionally, I've provided a playlist at the top of the description, and the next time you do a live stream, I suggest using royalty-free music from the cream of the music search crop or Spotify, or whatever platform you use to ensure the soundtrack of your stream. To close another exciting story on our HistoReddit channel, dear viewers, we would like to ask for your support. If you are not yet registered, click the sign up button and be part of our community. Don't forget to leave a like, this helps us to continue bringing incredible content like this. And so you don't miss any of our stories and updates, turn on the notification bell. We thank everyone who follows and contributes to the growth of the channel. Until the next fascinating story, here on HistoReddit.